Okay. Thank you all for showing up today. We are going to take today to review job calendars, new contracts, and salary notices. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute, ask them, put them in the chat. Rhonda will probably be monitoring the chat since I can't see that and my screen and everything else. So, first of all, let me start by saying we are recording this, so we will post this on our website. You can see that. So on our website, it will be under Finance, State Software Links and Training. And then we have a link right here for all of our recordings. And you will be able to just click on it. It will be right here at the top. And it'll take you to our YouTube page. Okay. So we are going to dive into job calendars. So you want to make sure that job calendars is the first thing you need to do. If your job calendars are not updated when you go to do your new contracts, your days will not be correct. It has caused problems in the past. So just make sure job calendars are the first thing. So yesterday I sent out the, let me find it, this little new contract instructions. It's more of like a checklist. It's not a all-inclusive guide, just because new contracts is very detailed and everybody has a little different way to do it. But it's more of a guide to make sure that you're kind of following, the process. But it has job calendars first. So for job calendars, here's all of my active job calendars. So you're going to want, you do not need to create a new one every year. That's a misconception. You do not have to come in here and create one for each fiscal year. You just add on to it. So if I want to take this calendar right here for my exempt staff who are 260 days, I click on my edit button and you can see I've got work days in April, May, June. Their fiscal year ends June 30th. Nothing in July. So I want to add all of next contract year in here. So what you can do is you come in here, you can use your calendar for a start date or you can type it in. So I want to add work days from 7/1 to June 30 of 26. I want it to be a work day. So I've already got my type here. I do not want to include weekends. And then I can click mass update. And that is going to add a work day on every single weekday within that time frame. And it's going to take a minute since I did 12 months worth. So just, there we go. So now that I have, so now you can see I've got my days on here. And at this point, I can go through and manually update any of my holidays. So if I want the 4th to be a holiday, I can come in here and I can right click on workday and change it to holiday. And I can just go down the line here. I don't know, Labor Day's in here somewhere, maybe here. I have no idea. So you can just go through there if you have a day. So maybe, I don't know, maybe the day after Thanksgiving is a just a non-work day. It's on a holiday, it's a non-paid day. You can make that a none. If you have a large time frame that you need to change, so maybe for your teachers for Christmas break, you could. Do I have a question? Somebody's unmuted. Let's see if I can change that. There we go. Okay. So if you have a large time frame and you want to make, let's say, if you want to make December 22nd through January. I'm going to make up some days. Maybe you want to make those non-work days. You can, again, kind of do the same thing, mass update, and it's going to take all of those out. So once all that's good, you can save it. Up at the top, this little right-hand corner here, this little grid here, this is where you can check your days. So you can see how many days you have for the fiscal year. So you can see I have 258 work days and I have 2 holidays. Here is the calendar year. So that's calendar year 25. So fiscal year is obviously July to June. I can just see fourth quarter because I'm in December of 25. If I bump this back, now it's going to give me third quarter because I'm in the third quarter of the year, the month that I'm on, and then I can do a custom date range. This is great. You probably all know this, but just in case, if you have people terminate before the end of their contract and you want to verify their days worked, you can come in here and say, okay, this person worked from 12 to 5 of 24 to April 30th. And you can see right here, I've got my custom date range. So they had 104 work days and 1 holiday. So once I have, if I call that like my base calendar, that's my 260-day people. And then I say, okay, my custodians, they work pretty much the same days. They have maybe a few less holidays. You can copy from one calendar to another, so you don't have to touch each one. So if I want to copy my exempt calendar to my custodian, I'm going to click this little copy button right here. And I can say, okay, I want to copy from exempt, and I want to do all of the fiscal year, and I want to copy it to my custodians. If I have more than that, like if I also want to copy it to administration, I could do that as well, and I can just click copy, and that is going to update those 2 calendars. So now if I go into my custodians, they have the same calendar as the exempt calendar, but from here, if I need to make edits, I can. So maybe this isn't a holiday. Maybe this is, maybe it's a work day. So I can make my edits, check my totals up at the top, and save it.
Colleen had a question on the chat, and it says she has to create a new calendar and split some of the M04 to M03. Is this going to affect the new contract setup?
You will need to, so if right now you have, if you have people on the same calendar, but you need to split them because maybe you have, instead of everybody working Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe you have some that are going to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and some Tuesday, Thursday. So you're going to create a new calendar for those Tuesday, Thursday people. What you'll do is when you do new contract, you need to update their calendar. So rather than being an M04, maybe now those Tuesday, Thursday people are going to be M05 or whatever it is. But just make sure you have it created before you do your new contract, so it pulls in their days. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I guess my question is there, real quick, the admin assistants, the coordinators are on one calendar. I've got to split that because they have different days really for some holiday.
Right.
So when should I split that? Because new contracts for them are 7/1, and I don't want to mess up what I've currently got in there because we're finishing out that year.
You're going to want to probably not change it till the new contract. So when you're running new contracts, so you can go ahead and have the calendars ready, right? You're not going to change their current calendar. When you're doing new contract, there's a place where you can update their calendar. So then it'll pull their new calendar and their new days.
Okay. All right, thank
And
you.
then Julie had, oh, sorry.
Go
Julie
ahead, I
had a
saw Julie
comment
had a
that,
question.
yeah, her custodians have 261 days for fiscal year 26. So she just wanted to mention that the days were a little bit different, the number of days.
Yeah, so and that's fine if like, because sometimes that happens, right? If, you know, every year's a little bit different. Some people stick with the 260 and they throw a one non-paid day in there. But yeah, just make sure the calendar matches the days that they're going to get paid for. Are we good on questions for now?
Yep.
Okay, so that was how you can copy from one calendar to another. You can also do a mass change. There's two different mass changes. I don't really know why you would ever use this one. This is like your standard mass change. Like if you needed to, I don't even know what you would use this for in calendars, but this little plus mass change, this one allows you to update every calendar or several calendars, the date from one thing to another. So maybe, you know, maybe we want to make February 5th a calamity day. So I can say, okay, this applies to my aides and my cooks and my teachers and transportation. So then when I save that and I go and I look at, now it says calamity day. So that's a way to quickly update one specific day on multiple calendars. If you have calendars, boy, that's a good question. So they have 230-day people. They can pick and choose when they take their non-work days. And how do you deal with that in USPS? What most districts do in these situations is they just kind of pick a time frame and they just throw the 230 days on there. You know, at any point within their contract year. So whether that's July to June or August to July, they just throw the work days on there. The thing you have to watch though is when they leave, hopefully you have some sort of actual calendar of when they took their non-work days, so you can calculate exactly what their contract amount is, right? If they don't finish out their year. So if they decide to leave middle of the year, you've got to know what they actually worked, because you won't be able to trust USPS since you just arbitrarily threw dates on your calendar. Does that kind of make sense? And obviously their accrued wages will not be correct either, because you don't really know when they worked. Hopefully that makes sense. Cool. Okay. So archive calendars. So if you have any outdated calendars that you're no longer utilizing, you can archive them. All you have to do is edit and check the little archive box and save it. And then it will no longer appear on your grid. Now, if I want to see them, so when I click my include archived, I have a whole bunch of nonsense in here. The last thing I want to mention, because this is still kind of one of those oddball things that I don't think most people know it exists, because if you came from Classic, it didn't exist there. You can tie specific job calendars to pay groups. So if you have a pay group for, say, cooks, and they're always on the same calendar, you can go to core pay group, and I can come in here to my cooks pay group. So this is my O1 pay group for cooks. And I can say their job calendar is cooks. What that does is when you are adding new contracts or adding contracts or their compensation screen, on the position screen, you pick your pay group. So when I say pay group 01, when I go to add that compensation, it is going to automatically want to use this job calendar. Now I can change that if I want to, but it'll automatically default to that. The reason I bring this up is because we had a situation one year where the calendar was always wrong. It was an archived calendar, and I, for the life of me, could not figure out how that kept happening because it was not a choosable calendar when you go to the drop down. After some research, I discovered that it's because the old calendar that they had discontinued was attached right here. And just because of the way things were set up, it wasn't getting caught. So as a result, these employees were not getting days reported to SERS. Work days weren't getting updated. So it was a little bit, we fixed it. It's all good now, but I just want to bring that up in case you see that happening. Check your job calendar out here. If you do none, that's fine too. And if that's easier for you, especially if you're like, well, you know, I have everybody in this pay group, but they're all on different calendars, you can do none in here, and that way it'll default to no calendar. Does that make sense? Hopefully that does. Okay, that's all I have on job calendars. So any questions there before I move on? Okay.
Nothing in the chat.
All right. New contracts. Oh, what fun, right? So new contracts, under processing, new contracts. There are 3 different ways to create a new contract. We'll go through each of them. The first one is you can use this copy button and you can do one at a time. This is great for those, you know, maybe those random people that they don't really fall into any specific pay group, or, you know, they're in a pay group, but they have a slightly different start and stop dates or whatever. So you could come in here, you can choose your employee, pick their compensation that you want to update. It's a new contract. I can go ahead and say, okay, my start date is going to be 7/1/25. My end date is 6/30, and create. And this pulls in current information. So this is what their current compensation looks like. The only thing that changed here is the start and stop date, because I just put it in when I was creating it. So from here, you can make your updates. So if I want to change my label to FY26, you can see here, it went ahead and calculated my contract work days because he's on this calendar right here that I have already put my days on. So since custodian's calendar's updated, it said, okay, I see 260 between 7/1 and 6/30. That's where it's calculating the days, calendar, and the start and stop dates. And then you can just update anything else. If you have anything on the position screen that needs to be updated, maybe they're switching buildings, anything else. Calendar start and stop dates, we'll talk about those in a little bit. And then from here is where you have their contract amount and obligation and their pays and contract. So if I want to give, say he's going to 60,000, I'm going to say 26 pays because this is a biweekly payroll. Once I put in my amount and obligation, I can hit calculate, and it's automatically going to update my per pay and my unit amount based on that information. So it's going to say 60 divided by 26, and this is my per pay. The unit amount, he's an hourly employee here. So it says, okay, 60,000 divided by 260 days divided by 8 hours a day gives me an hourly amount of this. So that's how it calculates. Once you double check that, you're good, you can save it. You also, so maybe this person, maybe he is switching buildings. Maybe he's, going from the middle school to the high school. If you need to change his account number, his payroll account, you can come down here and add it. So you click the add, you start to type it in, and then select whatever it's going to be. Make sure you check these boxes according to your policies, and then you would save. If you are adding a new payroll account, when you activate the new contract, it will put a stop date on your current payroll account of a before your compensation start date. So if I activate this, his current payroll account will end up with a stop date of 6/30. So you just need to think about that, whether or not that works for your payroll processing and your start and stop dates of your specific payrolls. You can always change it, or you could opt to not enter a new payroll account here, rather do it after you activate the new contract. Clear as mud, I'm sure. Okay. You can delete. So if I add this, so I'm like, oh no, didn't mean to do that, or I'm going to do this a different way, I can delete it, no problem. Okay, so that's one option. That's a single one at a time, not super efficient. Your other option is you can do mass copy. So up here we've got mass copy compensation. This way, you have some options here. So job status, yeah, I only want to pull in my active people. No, I don't want archived employees. I don't want archived compensations. The include compensations active as of. So if I say I only want compensations that are active as of, maybe I'm working on this in May. I could do, they were active as of May 15th of 25. And then you're going to select your pay group. So what pay group do you want to work on? So I'm going to say my teachers. And look, I've only got one, Bugs Bunny here. I can also go ahead and select my start and stop dates. So this contract needs to run 8/13 of 25 through 8/12 of 26. Again, contract start and stop dates are very unique per district, so I won't get in the weeds there, but now I can build my contract. It tells me it was copied into new contracts, so now it's out here in new contract maintenance. So here's Bugs Bunny. And all this does is it takes their current compensation and puts it over here. It did update the compensation start and stop dates according to what I put in on that screen, but everything else is exactly as it stands on their screen right now. So I need to go through and update everything. Okay, the last way to do your new contract, and this is probably, not probably, it is the recommended way. I do believe it's far more efficient. And it is a importing of new contracts. So after a couple of years of perfecting, I think we finally have this report pretty well done. If you do not have this report, so let us know. We can upload it if you want to use it. I know everybody's kind of got their process. But if you have it, it should be called New Contract by Pay Group with Headers. I updated this last year, so if you remember from 2 or 3 years ago, you had to copy the headers from a template into the file. And then I discovered that, hey, I can actually tell it what my headers are going to be. So with headers is the one that has the headers that you do not have to change, it's ready to be uploaded. This that we're getting ready to go through is the document that I sent out yesterday, which I need to send an updated one, but I was waiting until after today just to make sure I didn't miss anything. But that's what this document is describing, is how to run this report and update it and upload it back in. So that's what we're going to go through right now. So if you have this already in your report manager, great. If you don't, let us know. We can upload it. When I click on the download, it's already set to run an Excel data, which is what we want. And then I can pick my pay group. So it says codes, but it's pay groups. You can do one at a time. You can do several at a time. You just need to separate your pay groups by a comma. Let me back up here for a minute. The one thing I want to mention is this report. In order for people to pull onto this report, they have to have a fiscal year-to-date gross amount. So this is kind of a double-edged sword here, because it could potentially pull in people that you don't want, right? So maybe they already left. You just delete them off the spreadsheet. But it was the only way I could think of to make sure that we don't exclude anybody by using weird start and stop dates. So it runs based on a fiscal year to date amount gross being more than 0. And they have to be on stretch pay. So if they're not, if that stretch pay box isn't checked, they won't pull in. Their job status has to be active, and obviously not archived. So those are kind of the criteria in order for them to pull. So if you are running this report in July, after you've already changed your posting period to July and you've not run a payroll, if you run this, it's going to give you nothing. And you're going to call and you're going to say, hey, nothing's coming on this report. I'm going to tell you to change your posting period back to June and you'll get something. And I did note that on here. Clearly this has happened and that's why I put it on here. So you would just need to make June current and run it. Okay, so I'm going to run this for pay group 11. I think it's going to generate in Excel. And move this over so we can see it. So it pulls out what's currently in the system. So from here, it's Excel, so I can, throw some filters on here so I can sort it by last name or anything I want to. So if I want to sort it by the label, maybe I look at this and go, oh, these are really old. These people aren't here anymore. I need to clean that up somewhere. But anybody I don't want on here, I just delete it. No big deal. So now I have, these are the people I need to work on. So on this little guide, there's some notes, because some columns have specific items that you have to put in there. So column E, this needs to be 4 rather than contract. It needs to be a 4. Don't ask why. So that comes from classic days. So I just want to update that automatically. I'm just going to update that to a 4. And then F says my compensation label. Well, we can clearly see that, and you can use whatever you want in here. We just tell you usually to make it something with the fiscal year. It makes it easier to archive contracts once we get to that point with EMIS reporting. So late August or early September, we can archive those old ones. And it makes it easier to filter your grid for those old compensations. It also helps in that time frame when you have multiple compensations out there before we can archive them when you're doing future pay, because this label does show up in future pay. So when you're adding it, you'll see FY25, FY26, so you know which compensation you want to add it to. So I'm going to go ahead and update all of these. Okay. Next up, it tells me column R needs to say, instead of equal pays, it needs to say Y. So R, oh, it says true. It needs to say yes. Or a Y, sorry. So put a Y in there. Okay. Those are the specific items. So those are the things I'm telling you you need to do. But also, obviously, we need to come through here and say, okay, contract start and stop dates. Well, I need to update this to from 25, and this one's going to be 26. Ooh. Stop. Stop me, please. No, why is it doing that? Stop. Fine. So update these to be the correct dates, whatever those may be. So now I've got my unit amount on here. I got my per pay, my contract amount and obligation, my pays and contract. Obviously, I'm going to want to pay attention and make sure this is correct, especially for those people that started mid-year that has something different. So there's a couple of different ways that you could do this. You could say, I'm only going to update column O. I'm going to update this to, going to go through here and update all of these accordingly. That's a lot. From here, I can either say, okay, I'm only going to update column O, and maybe I want to use a formula in my obligation to say equals this. And then I can drag that down, and then it's just going to pull in that. So I only have to type it in one field, or you can copy and paste it, whatever Excel trick you want to use. The pay per period and the unit amount, you can either fill those in manually, you can use a formula, or you can leave it blank. If you leave it blank, when you upload this, it will automatically fill those in. So what I'm going to do is I'm only going to do a handful of these people. So for my B's, Beasley and Bowen, I am going to take out both of these. And then for these two people, I'm actually going to do a formula. I'm going to say equals contract amount divided by my pays and contract, and it's going to give me a per pay amount. And then I can decrease that if I want to. The unit amount is a little trickier only because we do not pull in the contract work days on this report. We can, if you really want us to, we can modify your specific report. The reason I didn't do it on everybody's is because I kind of like it as a check, because if you were to put it on your spreadsheet, it's going to populate a new contract, but that's not going to tell you whether or not you actually put that on their job calendar, right? So by leaving it off of this, when I upload it, if there is nothing on their job calendar, when I go to look at it, their days in contract is going to be blank. So I kind of look at it as like a little safety net to ensure that you do update your job calendars. For the unit amount, like I said, it's a little trickier. You may have to manually put it in here, or you may just need to know how many days they work. So you could still do a formula. And this person's hourly, so this one's a little trickier. Let's see, equals this divided by 460. Am I doing this right? I don't know. 8 hours a day, no, 5.5. There we go. Actually, I tell you what, I'm going to make this something wrong because I'm going to show you something. I'm going to make this 70. I know that's wrong, but I want to show you the error that I'll get. Okay, so that's what you need to update. If you need to update their calendar, so if they're switching calendars right here, this is where you change it at. If they are changing columns or steps, here those are, so you can update those on here as well. If their hours in a day are changing, you can update that. And then calendar start and stop dates. I think most districts at this point, they are not, their calendar start date is what it is, and they're not changing it, and they're not using a stop date until they leave. If you are a district that is using calendar start and stop dates that coincide with the compensation, that's fine. Just make sure you update them. I just saw the other day where there's a calendar stop date that hadn't been updated. So that was causing a few issues, but we fixed that, no big deal, because it was STRS. So you update all of this, and at this point, you can either go ahead and upload it, or maybe it's only April and you're like, nope, I know there's more changes coming. I know people are going to leave. I don't really want to upload it yet. You know, however you want to do that. But at this point, you're going to save it as a CSV comma delimited. None of these other weird CSV ones, comma delimited. I'm going to save it. Oh, one more piece. Any of these amounts, you cannot have commas and you cannot have dollar signs. So I know a lot of us like to have those formats in there as we're working on it because it's easier to view, but make sure you do, change the formatting before you go to upload. It will error out if you have commas or dollar signs in there. And I did note all of this on here under additional notes. So make your changes. X and Y, which is the calendar. You don't have to update it if you don't want to. You can use formulas. Cells cannot have the dollar signs or commas. If the unit amount and per pay amount are not on the spreadsheet, the system calculates, save it as a CSV, and then you can import it. So to import it, it's back under processing, new contracts, and then there's a button, import new contracts. I'm going to choose my file. I do not need a contract start date because I put it in my file. So I'll import, and I get, it says I have one error, 4 loaded, 1 error. So if I look at that, it's probably nothing. Sometimes these files, if you've done any sort of imports, you know, sometimes it thinks that there's an extra row that there isn't. So I can see here that this row was blank and it's telling me there was no employee ID. If I go back to my original file, I only tried to upload 4 people. So I'm good with that. So now those are in new contract maintenance. So here's my people. So my B's, so Beasley, I took C, I failed. He's on a wrong top calendar. He's my one and only. Okay, Bowen's a good one. So I did not, when I uploaded Bowen here, I did not have a unit amount or a pay per period. But you can see it calculated one when I uploaded. So it said, all right, the exempt calendar, there's 260 days. She's daily. All right, divide 98,000 by 260. That's my daily amount. And then divide 98 by 26 pays in contract, and I get the per pay amount. So for this person right here, Johnston, I gave her a wrong unit amount. I put $17. Well, it's an error out. So that is a slight issue. It's not really an issue. It's just what it is. It's going to upload whatever you say. But if I come in here, let's say I'm like, oh, I need to edit something. Maybe I want to change her building, whatever. When I save this now, am I crazy? Clearly I didn't. That's because I thought it used to give you an error that says, this is not what we calculate.
You don't want us to answer that, do you? Are you crazy?
Well, sometimes. I swear it used to, like, if you would save it, it would say, hey, that doesn't match. Maybe it's I got them backward. It's the pay per period. So it won't mess with, it won't tell you if the unit amount is wrong, but the pay per period it will. So if I were to upload $1,000, it won't tell me that it's wrong, but if I come in here and try to edit it and save it, it will say, hey, it doesn't match what the system calculated. So then I can say, okay, well, then you calculate for me. And if I hit calculate, then it's going to update my pay per period and my unit amount based upon what's already in here. So now I've got my correct per pay and my unit amount is updated based upon this, this, and this. I know I flew through that, but does anybody have any questions?
This is Maya, and I'm fairly new to this. So I would ask, in a situation like that, how do you run a control total or some kind of report so that you can kind of catch these if you've missed it?
So we're
in
going
the
to talk about the
system?
we're going to talk about the various reports that you can run. Unfortunately, new contracts is one of those things where everybody probably has their process. But I say it is, to me, it's one of those things where I think you start early and you double and triple check your numbers. It's
Okay.
worth it. So we'll talk about a couple of the report options that we have where you could do some checks and balances.
Okay. Thank you.
You're
It's
welcome.
nice to meet you.
You too. So any other questions on the new contract creation before I move on to the reports? Okay, so there are a couple options for reports. So the first one is under reports, and we have the new contract report. You have options in here. You can run it by a specific contract date, by appointment type, by pay groups. If you leave all of this blank, oh, you can also do like subtotals. So if I sort this by pay group, if I've uploaded 3 different pay groups and I just want to run a report of everything that's in there, I can sort it by pay group and then include a subtotal, and then because I think I got 2 in there. So then I can do, if I don't select anything down here, it's just going to give me everything that's in there. So this is what that report looks like. Oh, I don't have two different pay groups. But you can see, this is all of your information, right? So you can go down through here and you can kind of check things off. I used to have a spreadsheet that I would like, I called it my roster, and it would have my everybody's contract amount, and it would do the calculation of the per pay and the daily amount or unit amount. So I would just go through and I would check off this, I would check off this, I would check my pays and contract, and then I would check per pay amount is somewhere. Oh, that is the per pay amount. Where, oh, the unit amount, he's got a 0 in here because he didn't have any days. So I just go through here and check all of this off. And it doesn't have their days, does it? Oh, there it goes, right there. I'm blind. Okay. So you can just kind of check all of that off to make sure it's all there. Now, this contract, there's a lot of information, and the way that it's designed is maybe a little hard to look at. So there is another report. So that is under reports and report manager. It is the SSDT contract summary report. This one just runs everything that's in new contract. You cannot sort it or filter it by specific pay groups. But I'm going to first run this by PDF. So you can see this one puts it in a nice little layout. So you can just go down the line. So you can go 260, 260. Oh, got a problem. He's 0. Got to fix that. Hours in a day. Oh, why doesn't he have hours in a day? I probably need to look at that. Your pays and contract, make sure everybody's consistent. So this is, I really like the way that you just kind of go down the line here. There's not as much information on it, like you don't have your start and stop dates and all of that, but I do really like this. But you can also run it in Excel data. And Manya, this is where I think you could do some checks and balances. So when I have this in Excel data, then I could do a little formula and I could say, okay, I have in here, this is my pay per period, but let's do a formula. Let's say, okay, equals this divided by 26, and let's make sure they equal. I think that would be a good option to kind of check everything, kind of do it backwards. Now, it's not going to help you if this contract amount is wrong, right? But hopefully you're triple and quadruple checking this contract amount. So the other report option that we have is only for the payroll account. So if you changed payroll accounts, you could run the, I'm sorry, I should have told you what it's called. It's called the SSDT new contract payroll accounts. And it's going to give you any of those new payroll accounts that you entered in new contract. I think it's going to give me nothing because I did not put any. Well, it's hard to say working with this demo data, what I got going on here. But it gives you these, the payroll accounts. You can also run a report from the grid. So from the new contract grid, like you could add additional fields on here if you wanted to. So if you're like, oh, I like that summary report, but I also want to see the start and the stop dates. So, new compensation, and I want to make sure my date range, I want to add this to my grid. And then so now on my grid, I have that. So then I could run a report from here and kind of do the same thing as that summary report. It's just running it from the grid.
Can you save that report for future use?
You could. So once I have everything, and I don't have nearly enough. So let's just come in here real quick and say, I also want to add my new per pay, my new pay, nope, unit amount. Contract work days, and I want to come down here to compensation. I'll find it. Contract. I want, that's not what I want either. New per pay, new contract, new obligation, new pays and contracts. So get all of this good stuff added to my grid here. Okay, so now I can click on report, and this is where I can generate this in Excel data. So this is going to look very similar to that summary report, the SSDT summary report, but I added my contract start and stop dates. So now I can check those. But what you can do, if you would rather kind of build your own report, when I do report, I can come down here to the save as, and I can say this, call this Tanya's new contract report, and save that. So now, if I come out here to my report manager, and look, here it is. And now I have Tanya's new contract report, hit download. I didn't save it as an Excel data, so I'm gonna change that and generate it. And I can do that, and this will always be out here, and it's always gonna give me the information that's currently in new contract. It's a great idea. So that way you have the additional fields that you want to verify. All right, any questions?
Nothing's in the chat.
Okay. Moving right along. So once you have everything, and so you can do like new contract, how you want to do it, and everybody's kind of got their way. You can upload everybody at one time and have them sitting out here waiting for you. You can kind of do it batch by batch and activate as you're ready. It's really your call. There's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, but once you're ready, you would need to activate them. So when do you activate them? Theoretically speaking, you can activate them at any point in time because payroll runs based upon compensation start and stop dates. However, some of us came from Classic and you couldn't do that, and we're a little leery. So a lot of people wait until either right before the old contract's paid out or once it is paid out. Now I'm going to talk about that for a minute. If I'm going to use teachers here. So teachers are typically paid through the end of August, like their current contract runs through the end of August, right? So August 31st or 30th, whatever, that's their last pay. Well, they came back to work on, let's say, August 16th. So if you have your teachers out here in new contract, and there's a lot of different scenarios here, right? So I'm just going to focus on this one specific scenario. So if your August 30th payroll runs August 15th to August 30th with a pay date of August 30th, and your teachers came back to work on August 16th, even though you're paying out that old contract, if you activate these new contracts before you run that payroll, what will happen is it's going to continue to pay that old contract, but it will go ahead and calculate days worked and amount earned on this new contract. It won't pay it yet because it's still paying out that old one. So if you are a district that every single year you get to the end of the year and your days worked are always off and you've got to go fix it for STRS Advance, let's have a conversation about this and see if we can't fix that. Because, and again, it's unique to each district and how their payroll, their start and their stop dates and what their payroll process looks like. So I can't say this is how you do it. It's very unique. But if you activate the new contract before you run the pay that includes their first day back, it will pick up their days. However, here's the downfall. When you come in here and you activate these new contracts, so what it's going to do in this scenario, let's say their current contract has a compensation stop date of, let's say, 7/15. For whatever reason, I need it to be 7/15 in order to pull into whatever payrolls their last pay. When you activate new contract, it will automatically put a stop date on the old contract of the day before this. So if their start date is 7/1 on their new contract, it is going to put a stop date of 6/30 on their current contract. We can do a mass change to fix that. It's just one of the things the system does. I personally kind of wish that it didn't, because we use specific stop dates in order for it to pull into specific payrolls, but sometimes we need a compensation start date that overlaps, right? And especially in the case of teachers. So that's one thing to be kind of aware of. When you do go to activate these, so you can on your grid here, if you have several pay groups in here, but you're only ready to do one pay group, as long as you have pay group on here, you could use it to filter. So I could say equals 11, and it's only going to give me those people. And then I could do this select all. And if I hit activate, it pops up and it says, are you sure? And also it says, do you want to transfer the primary compensation flag to new compensations? Leave that checked. The only thing that this does is primary compensation is a flag that we sometimes use when we're running specific reports. It will not impact your payroll at all. It doesn't dictate what payroll or what compensation is getting paid or will be paid or default or anything like that. It's strictly for reporting purposes. I saw a question in the chat, but I've lost my chat box.
I didn't see anything pop up. Might be a direct one.
Okay. Hold, please. Can I find chat? No, I can't find chat. There we go. What is the best process to mass archive contract compensations? What is the best period to do this process and not affecting this? Okay. So you can mass archive, and so mass archiving, I'm not going to activate these right now. The best option is under core compensations, and then click on your contract compensations. And this is where this label comes in fantastic. So I can say, okay, I only want to look at my FY24. So here's my FY24 compensations. I've got my compensation start and stop dates already on here. So I can verify, yep, all of these are old. I do not need to worry about these anymore. So then I can do mass change. And if you do not have the compensation archive mass change definition, we can load it for you. But I can click on that. And then I can say execution mode. And it tells me there are 5 that are going to be modified. So I'm going to say mass change, and they're gone. I can come back in here and say include archived, and there they are again. So if I want to unarchive them, I'll just say close. As far as the time frame to do, that's the easiest way. If you have not been using the label, then we probably need to use the dates. So we can maybe do like a greater than or a less than situation in order to filter the grid to find out who we need to archive. Pays paid would work too. Yep, if you want to add that, yep, that's a good idea. As long as it equals pays and contract, right? Timing. This is a little unique too. Typically we say late August, early September, because EMIS usually closes the first week of August. There's a caveat to that. So your EMIS coordinator has the ability to request an extension. So it takes a little bit of coordination with them, but if they say, oh, nope, I'm done reporting, then you can archive. Some EMIS coordinators, they could run their final staff reporting. Maybe they do it, July 15th because they're taking the last 2 weeks of July off. Then so anytime after EMIS is closed, but to be safe, we usually say early September. So usually the other thing is we just kind of archive all compensations. It's not always a perfect scenario, right? Because if you had somebody that terminated late in the year, so you didn't find out they were leaving until after EMIS closed, and you need to report them as separated, you may still have to carry that compensation. But it's easier to archive everybody and manually unarchive the handful that still need to get reported versus, trying to pinpeck the ones that do need archived.
Do any of your notes, Tanya, include instructions on the archive process?
No, we send something out usually later in the summer, closer to that EMIS window closing. We do have a little checklist about that, but it's not on new contract information, but it is on that one. So expect that later in the summer.
Okay, thank you.
And I am so sorry. It is 11 o'clock already. Rhonda jinxed me. This is your fault. Okay. Salary notices. I won't spend a ton of time on this. Let me go back to new contracts. If you want the system to create your salary notices for you and be able to either print a PDF and mail, or it can email as well, we can set that up. We can do custom salary notices. We've already done that for several districts. We are limited on what we can put on that. So there's one district that they kind of do like a very nice package on their salary notices of like benefits and things like that. We can't do that. We're kind of limited to salary, unit amounts, steps, maybe years of experience, those sorts of things. But if you're not already using the salary notice program out of USPS and you're interested, just contact us and we'll work through those details. But I'll give you a brief overview. So once you have your new contracts in here, you have a salary notice button. And I can come in here and say, okay, I want this, I'm going to send this out on June 15th. I want it to be dated that. Sort option is more if you're probably going to want to create a PDF of it, right? Because you need to keep a copy of it because your auditors are going to ask you for copies of salary notices. So even if you're emailing, you're going to want to create a PDF. So if I sort this by employee name, this is kind of option. So how do I want to do this? Do I want to run my salary notices based on a contract year or a contract start date, or maybe appointment type, or maybe pay group? So I have every pay group in my new contract maintenance, let's say. I don't, but if I did, I could say, okay, I only want to run it for, this pay group. Because you can have multiple salary notices. So maybe you have one for your administrators and it has specific information. And then maybe your certificated, your teachers, maybe theirs is a little bit different because maybe it has a different date on it or something. and then you're classified. They might have an hourly amount where nobody else does. But you can have multiple. So Colleen, I'm gonna use yours. So I'm gonna say here, I'm gonna choose this one.
Oh, no,
and
that's not a good one.
it's fine.
We don't generate salary notices, so go ahead.
But at some point I created it for you. I really just want to showcase the customization that we can do. So you can see here, what we did here is it's on a nice letterhead. We can add that. We were even able to insert the signatures. Like I said, the wording can be specific, and this pulls from, this is a bad person to look at. There we go. So it's pulling from the new contract. So this might be hard coded in here. Some things can be hard coded, some pulled from the new contract. But that's kind of what it looks like. Like I said, this is totally customizable. So if I choose it, I'll just use this one. So you see theirs looks a little bit different. So we have options there. So if you're interested, we could do that. But once I have all this set up, you can see here, I choose my form. Sorry, so if I have multiple forms, I can pick which one for my selected pay group. When I generate salary notices, it just gives me the PDF. So now I have a PDF that I can print or save. If you don't want to print them all, fine, save it. Just make sure you know where you can find it. Actually, if you save it, we actually have the ability that we could load it into your file archive if you wanted to. But then you can do, I can't do it in this test file, but you can schedule this to be emailed on a specific date. So you could, when you click on this, it says, you kind of like your direct deposits, you schedule them to be sent out, and then it gets emailed on the date that you choose. If you don't want to email them, you don't have to. You can just print this off and send it to them. So you have to do this while they're in new contract maintenance, because once they're gone, like if I would have activated all of these, there would be nothing in here to send a salary notice on. However, if you go, oh man, I forgot, you can go to the compensation grid, and under contract compensations, you can work some magic and say, oh, I'm going to filter for my new, in this case, I'm just going to do 25, but my new label, because I labeled everybody with 26, and I can say, okay, so now I can highlight all of those, and I do have the salary notice option from here. So once it's out of new contract, you're not dead in the water. You just have to kind of filter your contract compensation grid a little bit to make sure you're getting the correct people. You could also filter by pay group, anything that you can add on this grid, you could filter by. So if you're like, oh, I only want to do pay group 11, I don't want 22 in there, and things like that. I know I went over that very quickly, but if you aren't using it and you're interested, we can have a conversation about that.
And if you have this scheduled, you can schedule it for a specific date, correct?
Yep.
And then if you find you need to alter something, then you can go into your job scheduler, delete out that job, and then reschedule it, correct?
Yeah. So if you've scheduled it for, a week from now, and then you realize that it's messed up or there's somebody in there that shouldn't be, whatever, you could come out to utilities job scheduler and you could find it in here and you could delete it, and then you could reschedule them.
Right.
The file archive, like I said, and this kind of goes for anything that's not already, doesn't automatically go here. We have this other tab, so if you have things you want to upload here, we can do that. But I thought it's been requested that when you send out the salary notices that it automatically generates a copy into your file archive. But until SSDT does that, I thought this would be a good option if you generate it and, you know, in the PDF file, you could just upload it in here versus obviously you have the option to print it and put it in their file, and maybe that's the best option. But if you're like, I don't really want to do that, and you can put them out here. It's just going to be one big file, right? Versus, or multiple little files versus, you know, going to that person's file and pulling it out. Oh, something. Any questions on anything I went over before we have two more things to briefly talk about? I'll get you out of here by 11:30. Okay, so Rhonda is going to speak briefly about a little trick that she has. Before that, we're recording this, like I said, we'll post it to our website if you want to refer back to it. I am going to resend out this. The only thing that is new on here is this right here, that cells cannot have dollar signs or commas. Otherwise, everything's the same, and this is the same as it was last year. So if you still have yours, by all means, use that, maybe update your notes. So I'll send that out later today. We'll post this to our website, and we are closed tomorrow, just as an FYI. We will not be working tomorrow, and I'm sure most of you aren't either, so please enjoy your 3-day weekend. But Rhonda wants to talk about a little hack that she has.
Thanks, Tanya. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. So I came up with a little hack, or kind of an Excel formula that I came up with. So this is very handy for districts that have, like, especially the teachers. You know, you've got hundreds of teachers. You have to go through and you have to update these contract obligations, and it's tedious, it takes a long time, and there's the human factor where you might miskey something or something like that. So what I did was, this relies on you updating your columns and your steps. And so that's on your compensation grid, on your grids, on your compensation screen. So you would first need to update those, and then we would go over and do a step up formula, just kind of increasing it by 1, copy and paste value in here. And then the formula, as you can see, it's got these nice lengthy formulas here in like the yellow and all that. And I've got the step in the blue and the column in the peach. And what it does is you would need to have your salary schedule in Excel format. And with that, it would look up, like, for the one that had a, you know, a step 13 and a column 1, it would be able to zoom in. Okay, this is column 1, step 13, and then it comes up with 56, 485, 33, and then that pulls that in there. So you can see this is a pretty much monster of this formula. So we'll be glad to assist you with this, but it's for when you have like teachers, and it's just like hundreds of teachers. So that helps out tremendously. You just need to verify that your columns are correct depending on where people are and their learning, and then make sure these are all correct, and then step up, and then we put in the formula, and you know, there you go, there's a voila, there we that it populates it, copy paste value. Make sure, as Tanya said, these values cannot have commas, so we would update those as well, and you know, load those into the CSV. So that's kind of in the nutshell, that's our little hack or way of doing this, where it helps speed the process, helps increase accuracy, and just helps you do your job quicker and easier. Okay.
So I'll just piggyback on that. So that process that Rhonda has is great, but please don't do that and then think, oh, everything's perfect. Please take the time to run the reports and verify those totals. I have seen it go south before.
Right.
You know, just I can't say enough. Like, our job is to pay people correctly, right? So let's verify our contracts are. I've seen weird things, like I've seen people do copy and paste from one spreadsheet to the next, but one spreadsheet, you had two people with the same last name, they were flipped. So then their contract was flipped. And, you know, so just use caution anytime you're using little copy and paste, or, you know, they're great hacks, but do double check that everything is what you expect it to be. So thank you, Rhonda. And I think you also discussed that on our, you may have gone into more detail last year. So if you want to catch the recording from 2024, she also discussed it then. But if you're interested, reach out to her. She will be glad to help you. Not me, because that formula is above my head.
The monster of a formula.
It's too high tech for me. All right, well, unless there's any questions, that's all we have today. We will give you back the rest of your day, and I hope everybody has a fantastic holiday weekend.